I want to talk about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris' potential matchup this November, but first, let's play some gems from the Cackling Hen.
Tails on the bus, go round and round.
Imagine listening to that for 4 years.
With us in government, we campaign with the plan. Uppercase T, uppercase P, the plan. And then the environment is such that we're expected to defend the plan. Even when the first time we roll it out, there may be some glitches and it's time to reevaluate and then do it again.
She tries so hard to be funny and to relate to people, but it doesn't work. Anyway, CNN talks about how it will be difficult for Kamala Harris to beat Trump. Let's check it out.
Senior data reporter Harry Enton joining me now to run the numbers. There is a lot of excitement. We have not seen this kind of shift in tone from the Democrats in particular. I can't remember a time where we've been through something like this.
This has been the craziest month in American politics that I can possibly recall. It was less than a month ago that Joe Biden and Donald Trump were debating in the CNN debate.
Less than a month.
Less than a month. We had a failed assassination attempt. We had a president literally saying, no, I'm not going to run for re-election less than a month before the Democratic National Convention. But here is the thing, Sarah Seidner, for all of the excitement that Democrats have over Kamala Harris.
And it has been a crazy month, to say the least.
It is going to be difficult to beat Donald Trump, and I want to give you an understanding of why. Let's take a look here just first at the favorable views of Donald Trump. We know that Donald Trump has historically been unpopular. But take a look now. After the Republican National Convention, in the ABC News Ipsos poll, he recorded his highest ever favorable rating at 40%. That's not a one-off. Take a look at the Quinnipiac University poll, 46%. That's the highest ever in that pollster. The fact is, Donald Trump is more popular now than he ever has been before. So, yes, Democrats can make this switcheroo, but they're still going to have to beat Donald Trump, a Donald Trump who is stronger, Sarah, than he has ever been before.
It will be interesting to see how voters respond to all of this. Now, how is he doing relative to Harris, who did run at one point? What do those numbers look like?
Yeah, so let's take a look here, right? We've been focusing so much on how Harris was doing better than Biden in the polling, and that's true. If we take a look at the national average, what do we see? We see Donald Trump up by 1. That's a within-the-margin race, right? That's a close race. But remember, of course, in the national popular vote, Democrats tend to do better there than they've done in the Electoral College, at least when Donald Trump has been running for president. So last time around, when Joe Biden barely won in the Electoral College,
Zuck Bucks, Hunter Biden laptop suppression.
He actually won the national popular vote by 4 points. So at this point, Donald Trump is running 5 points better. That's a 5 of some sort. 5 points better than he was 4 years ago against Joe Biden. So at this particular point, whether you look at the favorable ratings, whether you look at the horse race polling, we see that Donald Trump is doing significantly better than he was doing 4 years ago at this point. Kamala Harris is going to have to do better than this, of course, if she wants to win the popular vote, but more than that if she wants to win the Electoral College, where she'll likely have to outperform how she's done nationally, because the fact is, if you got to tie it in the national popular vote, that is probably not good enough if you're Kamala Harris and you want to win the election against Donald Trump.
I agree. That's not good for her. RCP average has him up 1.6 points. That looked like it was something else, but RCP has him up 1.6. Real Clear Politics, has him up 1.6%. And we'll take a look at some post-dropout polling data. But remember, she called 18 to 24-year-olds stupid?
And it's a specific phase of life. Remember, age is more than a chronological fact. What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories, and they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
That could come back to bite her. Let's take a look at the younger voting population.
Support is, they said. Yeah, you know, all this stuff about Brat Summer and all that jazz. So I want to take a look at Trump versus Democratic margin. Just remind folks where we were at the end of the 2020 campaign. Joe Biden won voters under the age of 35 by 21 points. What do we see with Kamala Harris? Well, she's still ahead, but the margin here is significantly less than what we saw with Joe Biden back in 2020. She's up by just 9 points. You may make the argument that was better than Biden was doing before he got out, but compared to that Democratic baseline, where Democrats have historically in presidential elections, at least this century, been carrying that young vote by 20 or more percentage points, she is way down from that. So if this is unique support among young voters, I would like to know what non-unique support is. Is it even worse than this?
Is she doing better than Biden was, though?
She was doing slightly better. Maybe Biden was up by, like 6 on average or 5. This is maybe slightly better, but this is not game-changing stuff, Mr. Berman.
All right, what have we seen in terms of motivation?
Yeah, so, the other thing is we talk about vote choice, right? But let's also talk about motivation, right? Because it's not just who you would support, it's whether or not you'd come out to the polls. And this, I think, is rather interesting. Do Democrats say they're more motivated to turn out after Biden left the race? Well, we do see a significant portion of Democrats who say yes, 39%. The thing I was interested in was it disproportionately younger voters who said that they were more likely to turn out or more motivated to turn out. And what we see here is it's 42%. Not a big difference between 42 and 39%. So this idea, again, that the vice president has unique potential to dig in and get young voters to turn out, John, it's just not there in the numbers despite all the internet memes that are going around.
At least not yet. In one
Voters under the age of 35. Go back to 2020. This is the Pew Research study. This is one of the best studies that we have. And look at that. 56% of young voters said that, in fact, they were Democrats. They identified as Democrat or lean Democratic. You look down at 2024, it's 49%. Look at the Republican jump from 39 to 49%. So when we say that Harris is doing worse than Biden, it's not that she's uniquely bad. It's rather she's fighting uphill. She's trying to fight against a wave that is going against the Democrats among young voters. And Harris may be unique in some ways. Maybe she does slightly better than the generic Democrat, but not all that much better.
Yeah, what this was shaping up to be a generational shift. The question is, was it just about Biden, or was it about his administration? We may find out soon.
We may find out soon, but at this particular point, it doesn't look like Harris is going to be able to fight against the grain too much, Mr.
Harry, and thank you very much.
Interesting poll numbers there. Now, like I said before, polls are not everything, but it is a snapshot in some ways of the way people are feeling at the moment. And this is actually very good for Republicans and Donald Trump heading into November. But let's not forget, Kamala is very radical. And I want people to know that. People who are uninformed, who don't know her history, her voting history and all that, let's check it out. Some of the things that she said in the past, which could be very damaging for America.
Kamala Harris is inspiring and very capable. The more people get to know her, they're going to be particularly impressed by her ability.
The nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator.
I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes.
What is the solution for voters in the fossil fuel industry?
Giving the workers an ability to transition. We're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross the border as criminals. That's correct.
Raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross the border without documentation.
Abolish ICE. Yeah. Is that a position you agree with?
And we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
Outdated, it is wrong-headed thinking to think that the only way you're going to get communities to be safe is to put more police officers on the street.
Would you support changing the dietary guidelines?
Yes.
The food pyramid. What would people
Yes.
to reduce red meat specifically?
Yes.
People who are convicted in prison, like the Boston Marathon bombers, on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation.
We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program.
So for people out there who like their insurance, well, they don't get to keep it.
Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
I am opposed to any policy that would deny any human being public health, period.
The more people get to know her, they're going to be particularly impressed by her ability.
I'm not sure who would be impressed by her ability. Maybe impressed by her, how much she can laugh or something stupid like that. But yeah, she is very radical. This is her voting record. She is to the left of Bernie Sanders, as many of you know, but for those of you who don't, this is it right here. There was nobody more liberal in the Senate than Kamala Harris. Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker are even more to the right of she is. Just a little bit, but they're still not as far as left as Kamala is, which is very troubling. Do you want a radical leftist lunatic running this great country where most of the people do not identify as far left? I don't think so. Let's check out some polling data. This is a new poll which came out post dropout for Uncle Joe. Trump is ahead 49 to 46, so 3% ahead against the cackling hen. Democrat, the long party line, it's pretty clear that 94% for her, 91% for Trump. Independents go to Trump 46 to 43. Men favor Trump 53-42. Women only favor Harris by 5%, 50 to 45. White voters 50 to 39 favor Trump. People of color 63 to 30. No college grad 55% for Trump, 40 for Harris, and you can see the rest of it right here. So Trump is ahead in a lot of many demographics. And this is another poll that came out. This is actually showing with leans, he's ahead 2% in the 2000 poll registered voters. To RMG research, Trump is ahead 44 to 43 overall. And there is a lot more. Look, it's going to be more important to see what the swing states look like as those come out in the days ahead. And we'll get a clearer picture of what things look like. But this is just a national snapshot. Again, another poll from July 21st to 23rd. Trump is ahead 44 to 41. Then another one, he's up by 1%. General election of 1,000 likely voters. Take a look at how it's broken down demographically. Region, okay, so rural voters 57-43 for Trump, 56 to 44 for Trump for suburban voters. Urban voters favor Kamala 63-37, not really surprised there. And you go down to the young 18-29 age group, Kamala's only ahead by 2% and 8% in my age group, 30 to 49, 50 to 64. Trump is obviously ahead there and tied 65 plus. I think a lot of these people here are just old-time Democrats who've been voting Democrat, Jimmy Carter Democrats, JFK Democrats who are not as radical as Kamala Harris. Gender, we go along gender, female, 41% for Trump, 59 for Kamala Harris. Men, 61-39. Now we go to ethnicity. I think this is interesting. Black vote only 10% for Trump, which I'm not surprised if Trump doesn't. I would not be surprised if Trump only gets 8 to 10% of the black vote. I hope he gets upwards of 15%, but we'll see. But I think the Latino vote is much more likely for him to get about 45 to 50%. And here he is 46%, which is actually very strong. So if he can get 45% of the Latino vote, he might be in pretty good shape. And we just have to capture a little bit more of that black vote. Here's one swing state poll, and Trump is ahead by 1%, 48 to 47. When you add other candidates, 46% to 44. I mean, look, Kamala has an approval rating of 37%. This is 538. Why is her approval rating suddenly going to shoot up as a candidate? I mean, you should have some hype. As you've seen that she's raised over $100 million in the past few days, but that hype will die down. And then as more data comes out and the Trump campaign really hammers her on her radical record, her border czar, her being the border czar, and we have record crossings since the Biden administration has been in office. It's come down a little bit, but I don't know how much that is fixed. Yeah, they do some funny stuff. But she's at 38% approval. I don't see that changing because she's not very liked. She's not super popular among her party. She couldn't even make it very far in the primaries. She got knocked out pretty quickly back in 2020. And she only won her race in California to Attorney General, I believe it was, by 1% or so. If I'm correct, it was not that much of a great victory for her, I should say. So she doesn't do very well overall. There's rumors that she's slept her way to the top and all that. That's another story for another day. But yeah, there's also more. The voters in Wisconsin are not happy about what happened, the old switcheroo, getting rid of Joe Biden. Let's check it out.
I think that if the DNC would have taken this path maybe 2 months ago, when these same problems existed, I might have leaned towards Kamala, our vice president. Now, knowing the things that they've been hiding in plain sight from the American public, I cannot find it in myself to vote for a Democrat, and potentially I might never vote for a Democrat.
There you go. A Democrat voter is saying he might not vote for them again because of what they did.
Who do you blame for President Biden being in office in this condition? Who deserves the blame?
His close staff. They work with him every day.
So I think that's what also makes me nervous about the Vice President Harris. Yeah.
Talk about that a bit.
So yes, she's going to be in it, but she also helped keep him in where he's at right now. And if he really is as bad as what they've been saying, I think if he steps down as president and she steps into the presidency before the end of his term, it almost makes me question a little bit more why it didn't happen sooner. She's worked with him. She's been, to my understanding, with him daily, or at least a couple of days a week. Why hasn't this been brought to her attention? If she's willing to hide that type of information once she's in office, now what she's willing to hide for herself.
And it makes her look very dishonest. You've worked with this guy for 3.5 years, and we know that Kamala's been waiting for this moment. We know, look, Joe Biden was unfit when he first got installed back in 2020, and his decline was rapid. His decline was rapid, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse over the recent months. And we know she was waiting in the wings to get her turn to be the first black woman president in history, as she's, the first black woman vice president. And she wants to make history based on her race. And it's, Kevin McCarthy is criticizing Republicans for calling her a DEI hire. That's what she is. Joe Biden wanted to pick a woman of color to be his VP. That was basically the only qualification that she had to be in that position. I'm sure there were better options to be his VP. There had to be. There had to have been. But that's what you call a DEI hire. And for some reason, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy is not happy about that. And so I disagree with DEI, but she's the vice president of the United States. We shouldn't call her that, whatever he said. It's just nonsense. It is what it is. She is a DEI hire. And I don't want her to be the first DEI president. So let's make that happen and get Trump back to the White House. It's going to take every single one of us to get out there and vote. And we'll do what we need to do to keep this country from going even further down the drain. Because if they get her in there, kiss this country goodbye, in my opinion. She will be far more destructive, or just as destructive, than Joe Biden. At the very least, just as destructive. So keep that in mind. Don't let your family members, if you can persuade some of them, the more naive voters, the ones that are stubborn, maybe they just don't vote. Hey, don't vote. Just tell them don't go to the polls if you're going to be voting for Kamala Harris. But I think her radicalism will hurt her. She's very radical. It will hurt her, and then it'll hurt her in the down ballot races as well. It will hurt Democrats because you have people in swing states, in districts, who are not as left-wing as she is. And that may go the other way. Yeah. But I'm going to leave that right there. I will do more videos on Kamala Harris leading up to the election. And I think she will be the nominee. Also, let's not forget she has a 91.5% turnover rate in her office. So she's not very likable, and apparently she's difficult to work for. Yeah. I'm going to leave that right there. Like and subscribe. See you next time. Thank you. Take care.